So, got on social media this morning and looks like we've got more of a civil war breaking out amongst the more well-known YouTubers, lefty YouTubers. Some may call them progressive. Some are going to disagree on them being progressive. There's obviously a few that I would disagree are actually progressives. And it seems like in the middle of this Democrat primary, there is literally a civil war going on in the mix now. So, obviously, the progressive voice has been going after people like Jimmy Dore for quite some time. Okay, now I've had my things to say about Sahil Habibi. Okay, not really a fan. He brought what's his name, Farron Cousins on not too long ago. Not really a fan. David Pakman, not really a fan. But then he had Kyle Kalinske on recently, and I like Kyle. Likes the Secular Talk channel. Don't always agree with what I hear out of Kyle, but I believe he's at least trying to come from an honest point of view and give his honest opinions and not just, playing completely off of a personal bias and a personal opinion, which I don't think is the case for a lot of those other people that I mentioned. We can take the corruption, potentially, trying to do things to bring in money, any of that. Take that completely aside. We're just going to look at, the message and, what they're saying, for example, okay? And the more I've watched out of people like the Progressive Voice, I start to see he seems to be more of like that, annoying little kid back in high school who wanted to instigate trouble more than anything. Okay, he would literally run between the two parties.
Hey man, so and so said this. Hey, you don't like that, huh? That pisses you off, huh? You want to do something about it? Oh yeah, you're gonna beat his ass. You're gonna beat him up. Okay. Hey, he said he's gonna beat your ass, man. He doesn't like you.
That's more and more the impression that I'm starting to get off that guy. And he literally calls himself, what is it, like progressive TMZ or something like that. So yeah, that's, but again, that being said, when Kyle went on his show, I think he tried to bait him into bashing the Tulsi supporters and whatnot. Kyle, and he didn't get it. Kyle, I think, gave his honest opinion. He thinks that Tulsi has no path to victory. I've obviously laid out why I think that though it's a long shot and a slim chance, there is a path, because history has shown us there is a path. Okay? But it's not going to be an easy path. Certainly isn't a likely path, but there is a path, so there's no reason to be bashing Tulsi Gabbard or her supporters this early when you literally have a snake in the grass like Elizabeth Warren still lingering around. Now, one more man has apparently jumped in on the team to, piss all over Jimmy Dore and the Jimmy Dore Show. And I didn't even really discover this guy until this year. I don't know how long his YouTube channel's been around, but I've watched some of his videos. Wasn't an avid watcher of his channel by any means, but I liked the guy. Thought he made good points, but honestly, with jobs and whatnot, I was already watching a fair bit of other content, was already trying to focus on my own channel, really, by the time I actually came across this gentleman. And so I did watch his stuff. Thought he made good points. I saw Jimmy Dore had him on some of his, stand-up comedy specials. We would go to, clubs, and sometimes he would be on his little panel or whatever, and that man is Tim Black. Now, the first red flag that came up about Tim Black, when I first started watching Tim Black, he was very, very praising of Tulsi Gabbard. And I was like, okay, yeah. So somebody else actually call them, like they see it. Now, am I saying that because I'm saying that Tulsi Gabbard only deserves praise? No. It's just simply the fact that while many other people were ignoring Tulsi Gabbard, he was talking about her and talking about, what she was doing good on the debate stage, the thing that she was calling out and whatnot. And so I was like, okay, so we got another honest guy in the room here. Great. Then he took a turn out of nowhere, and all of a sudden he started being more critical of Tulsi Gabbard. Then he reversed gears and went back to praising Tulsi Gabbard after she went after Pete Buttigieg, not in the last debate, but in the November debate. So we start pinballing here a little bit, right? Now, did I completely rule Tim Black out? Did I say I don't like Tim Black? Did I say I don't want to watch any of his content? Nope. I didn't go to those levels. Okay? But because Jimmy Dore has been critical of Bernie Sanders and is being critical of Bernie Sanders on a very regular basis, Tim Black has now gone on Twitter and basically said he does not support, if I'm correct here, Jimmy Dore and the Jimmy Dore Show anymore. Wow. Okay, so literally, you're that thin-skinned that because someone keeps pointing out flaws on your candidate, that you won't support someone you've done work with and been friends with in the past? What? That doesn't set well with me, man. That if that guy was my friend, that literally backs up the old cliche with friends like that, who needs enemies? You know? Wow. So Jimmy Dore has been catching hell from a lot of these YouTubers lately. And now we can add Tim Black to that list of people. Now, why is Jimmy Dore catching so much hell? Because they don't think that Tulsi Gabbard is the most progressive candidate on the field. Now, obviously, a lot of my viewers who are very pro-Tulsi, because I've been vocal on my stance of Tulsi Gabbard, they're going to disagree with that and say, well, she is the most progressive candidate. Okay, I'm not here to debate who's the most progressive. I have my reasons for supporting Tulsi Gabbard, and that reason isn't because I'm looking for who's the most progressive in the field. I'm looking for who has policies that I agree with. I'm not going to use that progressive, non-progressive, conservative. I'm not here to label candidates, okay? You've got good ones and you've got bad ones, okay? Do I see some disagreements with Tulsi Gabbard? Have I had some disagreements with Tulsi Gabbard? Yes, I have, okay? Tulsi Gabbard tried to criticize Trump for these whole tariff tax issues, and a lot of people don't agree with Trump's tariff tax issues, but to me, it's one of the only things that could be done to try and reverse gears on years of bad trade deals and try and level that playing field out. There's really, and from what I could see, no other option that could be taken there. So when she criticized him on that, I disagreed with her on it. Okay? Now, does that mean it's going to work? Does that mean what he's doing is going to be effective? I don't know, but I really don't know what else can be done. All I know is something has to be done. And it's not exactly logical to think that if he goes over there with his hat in his hand, okay, to Xi Jinping and says, would you please give us a better trade deal? We're getting trade deficits every single year, and we're coming here so politely. We ask you, Mr. Xi Jinping, would you please give us a nicer trade deal? Pretty please, with a cherry on top. That's not going to get him anything, and I think we all know that. So you have to kind of put your foot down. You have to take a stronger stance. You can argue that's going to cause trade war. You're going to argue that it's going to make things dirty. That's kind of life. When you're trying to make a bad situation better and someone else has the advantage on you, that usually doesn't come with just a, complete, oh, sure, we won't do the right thing by you, especially when you're dealing with someone like China, okay? It's going to get ugly before it gets any better. I mean, there's just no way of avoiding that. But that's where things like universal basic income, Tulsi Gabbard's proposal of reinvesting back into the American people, things like that need to be done with Donald Trump's tariff tax policies, because that is what will help the people of this country weather that storm. Okay? That's what will help us pull through those difficult times, dealing with those trade wars to get a better trade deal. And by the end of it, hopefully, you would have better trade policy and a vibrant middle class again, if it's all done correctly. That's the end game to this chess game here. Okay? That's what you want to achieve at the end of the day. But so I think they both make good points on how to tackle what we need to do, but I think it kind of looks to me like one has half of it down and the other has the other half of it down, but they're not putting their ideas together in the way that I think that they should. But I digress, okay? That's my criticism of Tulsi. But so there you go. I have disagreements. I could go through more, but for time reasons, we'll just leave it at that. That's the first one that I can just name off the top of my head there, okay? That being said, I have criticism of Bernie Sanders. Now, Bernie Sanders on policy, I won't go after a ton of policy here, okay? Do I think that Bernie Sanders has good intentions? Yes. Do I think Bernie Sanders would push for Medicare for all? Yes. Do I think he would sell out like Elizabeth Warren? No. Do I think he is trying to kiss too much corporate Democrat DNC ass because he thinks it's the only way he has a chance to get elected and try and get something done? Yes. And that is my problem. Because snakes are snakes, okay? And they bite. If you catch where my analogy is going here. You're not going to go up to these snakes in the Democrat Party with a smile on your face and try and rub them on the head real nice like, and oh yeah, I want to work with you. The second your attention is broken, that snake is going to strike and bite you. And these are venomous snakes, and they will kill you. Okay? Now, am I implying, a JFK assassination? Not necessarily. They'll kill you politically. They'll kill your support. All the people that thought you were something then start dwindling away from you. And guess what, Bernie? You got bit in 2016 when you supported Hillary Clinton. Because I know people come out, well, it was running against Donald Trump. Yes, but you're operating on the premise that Donald Trump was going to be 1,000 times worse than Hillary Clinton. No, he wasn't. I get there's a lot of crap you heard the man say that you didn't like. And you probably have good reason to not like a lot of things. I've certainly heard plenty of things he said that I haven't agreed with. I thought could be taken as very offensive. But then again, I've heard a lot of that out of Hillary Clinton back over the years too. Super predators, ring any bells? Laughing at rape victims, that ring any bells? So there's plenty of offensive stuff you could find on her as well. But mainstream media doesn't want to talk about that. Okay? So there was really that whole lesser of two evils thing for Hillary. Load of garbage. Absolute load of garbage. Okay? So Bernie, unfortunately for all those people out there that want to attack Jimmy Dore is just calling it like it is, guys. He's just calling it like it is. He's simply pointing out Bernie Sanders cucked out and rolled over like a little puppy dog wanting a treat for Hillary Clinton. And that did not garnish respect. That did not gain him any respect. It didn't do him any favors whatsoever to do that. Not one bit. It made, for someone who was supposed to be an independent, it made him look like a dyed-in-the-wool rollover Democrat. And it didn't help him. It didn't help him at all. He literally hurt his political career as a revolutionary, person for the people. He hurt his career way more than he got any support from, because I really don't see what support he gained and what favors it did for him. The person he endorsed says he's in bed with the Russians now, okay? Attacks him, says he should have endorsed her sooner. He should have done more for her. And this is the old bat who rigged the primary against him. So what did you get out of this, Bernie? Donald Trump got elected. You got screwed. The person you endorsed still, runs your name into the mud on a regular basis. And the Democratic establishment still is not behind you. Yeah, dude, you had a lose-lose situation there. Okay? And it lost a lot of support. And people think that Tulsi Gabbard is just the bigger outsider. They think she's a bigger outsider now than Bernie Sanders. Myself included. Okay? And so Jimmy Dore is just simply pointing these things out, and he's criticizing Bernie because he's starting to see more and more things out of Bernie that it doesn't look like Bernie wants to stand on his morals and his values and his principles. Okay, he doesn't want to stand by people. He rolls over. Look at the Cenk situation. He could have taken a stance, even though Cenk didn't want the endorsement. He could have said, okay, Cenk doesn't want the endorsement because, I'll take my endorsement back, but I still think Cenk is a fine man for this job. What did Bernie do, though? No, he didn't say that. He didn't say that one bit. He came out and he took back his endorsement and then also framed his entire tweet to distance himself from Cenk. And all the Bernie people, well, Cenk wanted it. Even Cenk himself. Well, I said it was okay, so it's no big deal. Well, I suppose if the man who got the endorsement said it's no big deal, I guess we could all say it's no big deal, but still yet, to me, I would say it is a big deal because you could have taken back your endorsement and not tried to distance yourself from the guy. Someone that's been an avid supporter of yours for quite some time and has done everything to try and help you campaign. But you didn't do that. You distanced yourself from that guy. Now, to be fair, it seems to me that I think that what a lot of these YouTubers are trying to do when they go after the people who are pointing things like that, like myself, Jimmy Dore, any of these other guys, what they're trying to say is they're looking at these polls and they're saying, okay, there's one clear guy that only has a chance at this. That's Bernie Sanders. Now, Bernie Sanders' policy is very similar to Tulsi's. You like Tulsi, so you should like Bernie Sanders. And so why are you going to berate the one guy who has a chance? Because that's going to do nothing but drive his poll numbers potentially down, and you could be just handing it over to someone like Joe Biden or Elizabeth Warren because you're not going to get Tulsi Gabbard. She has no path to victory. She's polling too low. It's going to do no good. She's wasting her time. You're wasting your time, and yet you're trying to hurt the other candidate who does have a chance that would be good. That seems to be the thought process that I'm gathering from all this, okay? I see their point, but they're missing one thing, okay? I would prefer Bernie get that nomination over a Joe Biden, over a Pete Buttigieg, over an Amy Klobuchar, because that's who the media's been pushing now, or even Elizabeth Warren, because I don't like her either, okay? So, with that being said, I take your point. It's duly noted, but first of all, you're operating on the premise Tulsi has no chance. I've laid that case out. If we're going off that analogy, then Howard Dean would have been more than likely a Democrat nominee back in 2004, not John Kerry. But it was John Kerry, and he was polling very low, and the guy that came in second place was polling at half of what he was polling at. So you can clearly have that turnaround. You can very clearly have that turnaround. Okay? So I don't take the premise of your argument to be a valid one. You can have your opinion. You're entitled to your opinion. I'm not going to criticize you for having an opinion, okay? But don't mean I have to agree with it. The problem is when you come out and attack the people like myself who have our opinion, all because you think we're hurting your candidate who has a chance. This is where the mentality of everyone deserves a trophy comes in, and I am not an advocate of that way of thinking. Everyone does not deserve a trophy. Bernie Sanders made a very poor mistake the last time around that alienated a lot of people from being willing to jump behind him. Even if there's someone, according to polls, way below him, they'd still rather support them than they had Bernie because they just don't know that Bernie won't roll over again. What if I were to go vote for Bernie Sanders this time around instead of Tulsi Gabbard in this primary? What if I did throw all of my support behind Bernie Sanders this time around and alienated Tulsi like all you Bernie people want to? And then somehow, some way, Joe Biden ends up the nominee again. I don't want a Joe Biden presidency. Period. Quite frankly, if I couldn't vote third party, and you can dislike this video if you want to, but quite frankly, if it came down to Donald Trump's second term over Joe Biden, I'd take Donald Trump in an absolute heartbeat. Period. And I have a lot of disagreement with the Trump presidency. Okay? But I would far rather have Trump 2.0 than I had Joe Biden. Because you're going to get all the negatives of the Trump administration and none of the positives. All that trade deal stuff, you know, no, the stuff with China, trying to get on level footing with China, war, oh, that's going right back on up. I mean, Trump hasn't really de-escalated the way he claims he has, but it's just going to go up under Joe Biden. I mean, there's no doubt about that. We're going to have more war. I mean, we're talking about a guy who's literally pushing us into Iraq here. Okay, so yeah, it's going to go nowhere. It's going to be a complete colossal waste of time. So I do not want Joe Biden presidency. But my problem is I'd be willing to put good solid money on it that if Joe Biden turns out to be that nominee, Bernie Sanders is going to walk out on a platform somewhere and go, I like Joe Biden. Joe Biden's a friend of mine. We should elect Joe Biden to be president of the United States. Because he'll have a health care plan. May not be a great health care plan, but it's a health care plan. It'll be a better health care plan than Donald Trump's. Be a better health care plan than we have right now. It's a start. It's a start. It's a start back on the right path. I like Joe Biden. Let's elect Joe Biden. I got a feeling he'll do that again. And if he does, now you could say Tulsi Gabbard would do the same thing. She said she won't run third party. If she does it, I'll be critical of her on that too. I'll be critical of her on that. Okay? But I don't know that Tulsi will go out and campaign for the nominee this time around. She didn't campaign last time around. She only basically kind of, said, yeah, I'm going to vote. Bernie went out and stumped for votes. That's the difference, folks. You can say, okay, yeah, they're the nominee. Cool, I support them. There's a difference between doing that and going out and, we need to elect Hillary. Hillary is a better candidate than Donald Trump. Donald Trump will be a disaster for the American economy. Donald Trump will be a disaster for this country. Donald Trump must not be elected president. We must elect this warmongering witch. She should be the president of the United States. She who has bad trade policy. She who wanted us to go into Iraq. She who called black people super predators. Her husband signed the big crime bill. She should be president. That's what you did, dude. That's what you did. Okay? And so there's just a simple difference between endorsing and campaigning for someone. And I would be willing to bet Bernie will be out there campaigning for that nominee again. Unless they tell him they don't want him to. And I doubt that because they're going to want those Bernie voters. Even though it didn't work so well last time around, they're going to come out and say, yeah, we want them. So, hey, Bernie, get to it, man. Come on, chop, chop. And Bernie's going to say, yes, sir. Right away. Just give me a Scooby snack when I'm done. That's my problem with Bernie. That's my problem. That's what people like Jimmy Dore keep pointing out about Bernie. And I get you like Bernie more than Tulsi and everybody else, but you've got to be honest about your own candidate, people. You've got to be honest about your guy. I'll admit the flaws of my candidate and anybody I've supported. I'll admit where I disagree with them. I'll admit where they're wrong. But you have this fear that you can speak no evil of your candidate because by pointing out any of their flaws, you're committing an act of treason and an act of heresy, and we're going to just hand it over to a corporate guy. Well, you need to understand something. If pointing out their flaws does that much damage, then they must not be that great of a candidate because clearly people can't accept with those flaws for the greater good of their message. They think the flaws outweigh the greater good, and so therefore your candidate really wasn't that great of a candidate after all, huh? But I got a feeling you're going to tell me that that's not true about Bernie. Bernie is that great of a candidate. He is a great candidate. He is not that flawed of a candidate. So if you believe that, why are you so touchy about people calling him out on stuff? Why is that such a bee in your saddle? Why does that sting your ass so bad to have someone simply call out the problems that they see on your candidate? See, I don't get that. When people point out a legitimate concern about Tulsi Gabbard or an Andrew Yang, I'm not going to come out, why, I say, I never go all foghorn leghorn on them. Now listen here. You can't talk that way about my candidate. No, I'm not going to go all foghorn leghorn on somebody from like that Looney Tunes rooster and start giving somebody a big lecture. Y'all, you just can't do that. But when you make a bogus claim about Tulsi Gabbard, well, that's a different story. Yeah, I might make a YouTube video on that one. But if you point out legitimate issues, I'm not that much of a thin-skinned baby. I'm going to be like, no, you can't do that. No. Why? Why are you being so mean? No. That's ridiculous. That is absolutely ridiculous. And honestly, the more people like you do that in defense of Bernie Sanders because you don't like people pointing out legitimate issues with Bernie Sanders, the more all those voters who are kind of on the fence for Tulsi and everything else are going to be sitting there and looking like, so you're Bernie's base. Nice. Who's running third party this year? Who's that again? Who's Green Party nominee? Who's going to be the Libertarian Party nominee? Maybe Trump isn't looking so bad after all, but yeah, you Bernie folks. Yeah. Y'all need to grow up a little bit. That's what's going to happen. And again, that's why I like Kyle Kulinski, because Kyle Kulinski is a die-hard Bernie Sanders supporter. I don't think there's any question that Kyle Kulinski loves him some Bernie Sanders. He refers to him as America's dad, after all, right? Okay? So he loves him some Bernie. But at the same time here, when he has a disagreement with Bernie, he will at least be truthful about it. He was honest about the whole issue in 2016. He said, yeah, this didn't really look good for Bernie. So he's at least honest. Whereas you people get so defensive when someone speaks ill of your beloved Bernie Sanders. And yeah, keep going after people like Jimmy Dore. Keep going after all the people who simply point out flaws and see where that gets you by the end of this primary season and in the general election.